This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222.
Prof, pre-implantation genetic testing seems to have become almost standard care in the US to check for chromosomal abnormalities and stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Certainly in the United States, the use of pre-implantation has become very common, whereas it's not that common. I think at the last count, and it's been quite stable the last 2 or 3 years, it only accounts for 15% of all IVF cycles have the genetic testing, whereas there are a significant number of clinics in the States where it's as high as 85 or 90%. Whenever you look at things in America, you wonder what is the driver for that? And common drivers are money. There is no question that if you genetically test an embryo and it is normal, it has a higher chance of getting a pregnancy by about 20% higher than an untested embryo. Amongst the untested embryo, there are going to be ones that do carry genetic abnormalities, and that's why pregnancy rates will never be great, because we will be putting back genetically abnormal embryos unknowingly. But is it worth testing to prove that? Because ultimately, if you've got, say, 3 embryos and you do 3 embryo transfers, you'll get to the one that's normal anyway. So what's the point? The point is that if 2 of the 3 embryos were abnormal, you've avoided 2 transfers and the cost of $2,000 each. And so there's a financial incentive to possibly do the genetic testing because you're avoiding that issue. And then there's the issue of time to pregnancy. I want to be pregnant now, as most women I see in the clinic, they want to be pregnant now. Doing the genetic testing means you're going to be putting back a genetically normal embryo. And therefore your pregnancy rates jump from around 35% to 55 to 60% by putting back a genetically normal embryo. But it still doesn't guarantee you 100%. So that's the other part of it. But cumulatively, once you've used all the embryos up, you're going to make no difference whatsoever to the pregnancy rate. In fact, there is some suggestions that the testing is not really 100%, and we may be throwing away embryos that may well have corrected themselves and been normal. That we're not, because when we test an embryo genetically, what we're doing is just sampling the cells on the outside of the embryo. We're not sampling the actual cells that will form the baby. And we know that in some cases there is a difference between the two. You can have abnormal cells in a placenta but have a normal baby. So that the people have cast some doubt on the use of PGT at all, that we may be wasting embryos that we shouldn't do so. And some of the techniques to assess the genetics were thought to be pretty close to 100%. They turn out not to be. Using the fluid, the cells in the fluid around the baby was thought to be a good indicator, but it hasn't turned out that way. And probably embryos were thrown out in some labs where they were using that technique before it was really proven.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.